universities. I think that marketing team is keeping a track, and all across the globe, and many of our team members who've joined us online. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here. It's lovely to see you all. We are doing this in-person session after 2 years. We're so used to that online version, but lovely to see a room full. Nothing like interacting in person also with our panelists. And I'll be quite honest, the last, given the Mumbai situation and the rains, we have been, as a team, stalking weather forecasts. As a hawk, like, okay, the clouds are here, the clouds are there. So it's lovely to see a bright sunny day. And we are going to have a beautiful morning. It's all about students, inspiring students today. On that note, thank you so much to our student panelists. I know this is a really exciting time. You all are all excited. I think most excited to fly the nest more than anything. Lots of last minute farewells happening, lots of last minute packing. So thank you so much for taking the time out, being here, sharing your journey with all our future, I think, few generations of applicants. And we are thrilled to host you here today. Moving on to, we have LCR Capital, and I think Puran gave you a brief introduction. Thank you, LCR. They are one of our sponsors for today, welcoming Shilpa Menon, Senior Director for the India region. LCR Capital are one of the leading immigration consultants in the country. In fact, I was talking to a couple of parents, before the event, and they were asking me what is the EB-5. So that's exactly what LCR expertises in. LCR Capital helps and supports families acquire residency in the US and Portugal. And of course, this goes a long way. It opens up many doors of opportunities, not only with regards to admissions, recruiting, but lifelong after that. Again, I'm no expert here. I'll leave it in, of course, Shilpa, your hands. But just a couple of things that if anybody is thinking about this and wants to explore this option, the time to act is now, because it does take a couple of years. The government is supportive of it, so it's very much a program that's here to stay. And most importantly, is that once you apply for it, if the student is based in the US, you get a work permit within a year. Again, Shilpa Menon is the expert in the house. We will have you, if families want to meet her, she will be more than happy to meet you one-on-one. But just sharing some facts and highlights that as a parent wants me also to consider it very, very seriously. Okay, so moving to the back of the room where we have all our amazing teams, including the undergrad team, including the pre-college advising team. And after the event, we will be happy to meet families one-on-one. From 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., we will be happy to meet families one-on-one, help you with questions, whether it's with regards to profile building, college selection, college strategy, so on and so forth. And that brings it back to me. A quick introduction to myself. I'm Sheetal Vora. I head the undergrad admissions at the Red Pen with Mehnaz Jafar. We lead a team of 40 brilliant consultants, been in the education space for a while, evaluated thousands of applications over the years, cruising into my 7th year with the company now, and have brilliantly enjoyed mentoring students across a breadth of majors. But today, it's not about us. Today, it's all about the students. So with that, gets me to the last and the most important point of the day, which is who is the Red Pen? Who are we? We are an independent educational consultancy based in Mumbai, but we have consultants all across the globe, and we mentor students all across the globe. In the last 11 years, we've mentored over 7,000 students. We've mentored students from whether it's the US, Nigeria, Africa, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, so on and so forth. As you can see, these are the educational consultancy verticals that we offer. In an inner joke, inside joke, pregnancy to PhD is how I like to say it, because we literally offer, the entire spectrum start to finish. We also offer, along with, of course, undergrad, postgrad, MBA, we also offer boarding school support and institutional support. What do I mean by institutional support? Institutional support is that we support new schools set up their college counseling teams. We support new college counseling teams, mentor the initial cohort of applicants, whether it's with college strategies, college listings, and we are also the in-house consultants for the German school. So we truly are aware of both sides of the spectrum when it comes to counseling, because many a times I have families asking us that, I have a school counselor, so will that be a conflict? Not at all. And of course, we will be talking more about this in depth. But yes, college independent counseling and the school side of college counseling goes hand in hand. It's a symbiotic relationship. And with that, without any further delay, I would like to invite our first panelist with a loud round of applause, Anirudh Padya, Pranav Lohia, Janvi Gupta, Misha Gupta. Can we have a loud round of applause, please? programs of their choices. As you can see, we have mentored students across 50 countries. But one of the very interesting and one of my favorite highlights is that our students have been awarded $42 million over the last 11 years in full scholarships. Can we change the slide, please? And this is a highlight that I take great pride in sharing. Our students have been awarded full scholarships from prestigious universities, as you can see, whether it's MIT, Princeton, University of Chicago, NYU Abu Dhabi, Drexel, Amherst College, Ashoka, just to name a few. And our student has also been awarded, one of our students was also awarded the Lester Pearson Award. This is a highly, highly prestigious award by the University of Toronto. Only 37 students across the globe and only 8 students or so in India are awarded that. It is a full ride inclusive of airfare by University of Toronto. So again, just sharing one of the favorite highlights for my end. Thank you so much for that. Okay, as we move into the, kickstart the Journey to College 2022 today, which is all about students inspiring students, I would like to, for families who are new to this process, who are slightly unfamiliar to the process. The college counseling process across the globe, whether it's India, US, UK, Canada, involves a couple of components, right? And you may have heard about whether it's essays, interviews, extracurriculars, so on and so forth. They all are, your weightage may vary, right? So today we are going to be discussing 4 important components as the first panel. And in the second panel, we're going to talk about niche majors. So with that, can I please request our first panel today to introduce yourselves, your name, followed by which school did you just graduate from, your college that you'll be attending soon, and your intended major.
So my name is Untitled Chapter. I used to study in the Rhode International School, and I'm planning on studying chemical engineering.
My name is Janvi Gupta, and I studied at Hiranandani Foundation School, Powai, and I'm going to be studying computer science at Carnegie Mellon University.
Thank you, Nisha.
My name is Nisha Gupta, and I used to be a student at the Rhode International School, and I'll now be studying economics at Rice University.
Thank you, and Pranav.
Hi, I'm Pranav Lohia. I studied at the Doon School, Dehradun. I'll be attending the University of Pennsylvania, and my intended majors are material science and chemistry.
And thank you, Pranav, for making that trek all the way from Lucknow only for today. Thank you so much for this morning. Okay, moving on to, can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, essays. I'm sure this word may have a couple of students cringe, couple of students already like, oh my God, but let's address the elephant in the room right at the onset. Essays. Essays are a really, really integral part of this application process. They are considered deal breakers, and I'll give you a case study on that sometime soon. But essays comprise not only, whether it's the US, the liberal arts colleges in India, Canada, but also very much part of the UK. It's called the personal statement, and even European destinations and Asian destinations. So when we talk about essays are, and why is it that our kids most often procrastinate with this? They face challenges in writing these essays. Because these essays are not something that, our high school kids are used to writing. They are reflective. You've got to show admissions a little bit more about yourself. That's not captured on the other components of the application form. So let's hear from our panelists, how did they tackle this component, which of course set them apart. So my first question to Janvi, your Common App essay was about dance and computer science. This is a really unique and an interesting, understand how did you tie it together?
So the Common App essay is kind of like the longest and most important essay that you write in your entire application. It's 650 words long, and it gives you the opportunity to write about whatever you want to. It could be like an event that really changed your life or something that challenged you. I use the opportunity to write about essentially like the defining point of my application and highlight something that was very important to who I am. And that was combining creativity with logic. So I am an Odyssey dancer. I have danced for over 13 years now, and I'm a computer science teacher. In my Common App essay, I wrote about how my dance teacher asked my dance troupe to choreograph a piece on water. I spoke about how initially I could only think about the logical aspects of water, like its chemical properties and water being a colorless and an odorless liquid. And then I transitioned into how I use creativity to depict ripples of water using concentric circles, or depict the vastness of water using like infinity symbols. while also using logic to form clean and smooth transitions. I also spoke about my grandfather's contribution in helping me understand how to apply creativity and logic and how to combine them together. He owned a cast iron factory, and I would often visit there. And one day he took me to the lab, and I was fascinated with the lab. And then I kept going back to conduct experiments of my own. And this added a very personal touch to the essay.
Thank you, Jani, so much. Just for everybody to know, Jani has completed the ISC from Hiranandani Foundation School. She had taken 5 APs and ACT of 34. Of course, the recipient of multiple awards internally and externally from school. And she has pursued a couple of her interests that we will talk in depth about. But from Janvi's story, we learn and we understand how two diverse interests, computer science and, of course, dance. We had someone last year, they had blended math and music. So there is always, and families do ask us that, I'm interested in this, but how do I talk about this and this? There is always a way to find blend. And it's very, very, it does show a different side about you that's not captured in the other components of the application. Okay, so moving on to my next question is for Pranav Lohia. Pranav, you tackled, of course, the Common App essay for University of Pennsylvania. And along with that, you had to submit 2 detailed essays for Penn as well, right? How did you ensure that all the 3 essays, while interconnected also, but at the same time, demonstrated or communicated a different side to you without there being any repetition, without there being an overlap, but still a synergy and a link tying them?
Okay, so to explain like how I crafted my application was, I looked at it as 4 different assets and how I could like use each of them to signify something different. So I had 3 Penn essays. First, why you Penn? Second, community and families, like what is your community and what will you bring to our community? And the third essay was, why do you want to do the Viper program at Penn, which is essentially a dual degree program, which is focused on energy research. So I used my Common App essay to talk about my school life because I'm from an all boys boarding school. And I explained how my school life translated into my interests apart from like academics, because we at Dune at least like do a lot more than just academics. So I talked about how I really started enjoying music. So I play the guitar and I furthered my interest in that. I write poetry, so I furthered my interest in that. And then alongside all of this, I really like math. So I furthered my interest in math through Olympiads and stuff, which I wrote about in my Common App essay and how that helped me get new perspective in life. I use my YU Pen essay to essentially bring like do justice to the fact that why I am applying ED to the university, and like I explain to them what they bring for me, which other universities won't, and why I think so I would be a good fit for them, just academically this time. Then in the community essay, I spoke about how my boarding school experience and my family, because I live in a joint family, how that would help me adjust into the university and how I would be able to give some things to the university which I've learned throughout, like through my rituals and through my traditions. And lastly was the Why Viper essay, which was a highly technical essay. So that is where I elaborated on my extracurriculars, such as like internships, research, and more so my interest in energy, why that kindled, and I talked about how that program was just the program for energy research and how it would help me solve a crisis that I see in my hometown, because electricity in India is surely a huge problem. So I used these kinds of approaches to like tackle all my essays so that there would be no interlap and there would be some interconnectedness.
Thank you so much, Pranav, for that. So Pranav has completed his IB from the Dune School, a SAT score of 1490, multiple recipients awarded multiple awards by the Hong Kong International Math Olympiad, distinction in the CEMC. But what we wanted to kind of highlight through Pranav's story was that every college will be asking you for a supplement essay, an essay that they have actually, wanted to hear from you, that how well have you researched their university? What makes you a great fit? What is it that you have done in your high school, whether it's academically, non-academically, and how do you plan to grow through them? So there's got to be a connection out there. You cannot have the same why a UPenn essay and a why a Carnegie Mellon essay and just put it together. That doesn't work. Writing a supplement essay takes a lot of research, takes a lot of time, and we've seen that when students give it the due time and thought process and then stitch it back to themselves, that gives you a very strong narrative. And that's what we wanted to connect. So Pranav, in his first Common App essay, he set the foundation where it was highlighted his thirst and intellectual curiosity and a little bit of a blend of his boarding school day life and how the interest in material sciences or energy had sparked off. That set the stage for the next two why essays, which were the technical essay of why the Viper program. It's one of the very, very competitive energy research focused program, and the community essay. So again, ensure that your essays also tie in together. They have to blend in like a beautiful piece of puzzle. Okay, so moving forward to my next question to Anirudh Padya. Anirudh, what we are going to be discussing with Anirudh is the personal statement. That is the essay parallel of a UK application. So Anirudh, your personal statement, of course, reflected your passion for engineering, but a personal statement is not reflective. It's a more straightforward, 4,000 character essay format, which is in the UK, basically, they want to know what is it that you want to study? Why is it that you want to study? How does your personal statement tell us that you've, kind of challenged yourself to know more about this subject outside of your curricula, because you are committing to studying that program in the UK for the next 3 years. It's not like other countries where, liberal arts or there's flexibility component. They want to know you are sure of what you want to study. Not that you've only taken it at school level as subjects, but how have you known more about that? So my question to you, Anirudh, is how did your personal statement reflect that passion for engineering?
I think the meaning of personal statement and how to approach it is to think of it like, how do you show the college that you're academically prepared and ready and that you academically want to take a subject? Not that you want to take a subject, but academically want to take a subject. So you have to show various aspects and various factors of your profile academically as well as in terms of extracurriculars to show how you know within the classroom. And within the classroom, you go and really get in depth about the subject that you want to pursue. Whether, for example, in engineering, I talked about why I like the math aspect, why I like the physics aspect, why I like the chem aspect. But also, I later in the personal statement, I went into a lot of depth about, for example, the research paper I did as an extracurricular, the internship that I did, just to show them that, it's not just about the classroom, it's outside the classroom as well. And the personal statement, 4,000 characters, you might think that it sounds like a lot, but when you actually get the nitty-gritties, when you start writing it, it's not really that much. So you really have to prioritize what you want to say and say it like impactfully and be very direct and blunt. It doesn't have to be as artsy, I'd say, as a common app, but it has to be factual, straight to the point, and conveying that you're ready for an academic course.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anirudh, for sharing that. Anirudh, of course, has completed his IB from Dhirubhai Ambani School, IGCSE also from there. 10 IGCSE subjects, all A stars. An interesting thing to note again is that when Anirudh applied to the University of Cambridge, the requirements on their website were lower. When they offered him that conditional offer, the conditions were higher. He was then expected to get a 43 and 777 in all his HL. So kudos to you for getting that. That is stressful. So in the UK, yes, what you get earlier on, yes, it's of course you can celebrate it, but these are conditional offers. You have to walk the talk till the very end. You have to get those scores in the final exams. Otherwise, your admits can be retracted. One thing I would like to kind of also note out here is that families have this assumption that, okay, I do not have a breadth or depth in my extracurriculars. I have only an academic profile. I think I'm suited for the UK. But in the last 2 years, many things have changed, of course, and so has college application and the volumes, right? UK has seen a spike, like never seen before, and 30% only from India. So how does even a UK institution distinguish whether to admit you or not? And we've had cases this cycle itself where though the student has met the conditions, but the personal statement does not talk in depth about what have you done to know more about this, that passion does not come across. So in spite of having made the conditions, they have not received offers. So again, just for all the students out here, you may feel like, yeah, you know what, I don't have time, I'm not working on it, I'll just apply to the UK. Not so easy any longer, the story has changed. Okay, and one last sort of a case study or example that I'd like to share before we move on to the next component, that how essays are deal breakers. We have a student who is at UT Austin right now. He is a rising junior. He applied to the honors program at UT Austin for natural sciences. UT Austin, of course, is a very, very competitive university, but the honors program is one notch higher, and you have to write a separate application for that as well, and separate set of essays. Interestingly, he shared with us that, when you reach college and you start your orientation, you meet faculty, you meet, the admission team who've read your application. He was told that the admission team had denied his admission, but the honors team, the honors committee, sorry, they loved his honors application essays, and they overruled the admission committee's decision. So a absolute case point example of how essays are deal breakers. I can go on and on about these things and about these different cases where, essays have swung decisions and admissions, but that's another day. Moving on to the next component. Can we have the next slide, please? Extracurriculars. So yes, we just spoke about the importance of extracurriculars because that has to be reflected through your, essays, whether the Common App essay, the why essays, or the personal statement. So my first question to Misha Gupta: how did you showcase your interest in economics through your extracurriculars outside the classroom? And of course, bulk of it was also the last 2 years of pandemic. And that's a question that many families have, that how do we show it and what do we do? So over to you, Misha.
Yeah, so my interest in economics actually started when the pandemic started. So like I had a lot of free time on my hands. So like I was reading a lot of books. I read Freakonomics, Predictably Irrational, Thinking Fast and Slow Nudge, all sorts of books. And these are all like behavioral economics focus. And that's sort of what got me into economics. And then like in school, once IB started, I became very interested in economics, and I realized that that's what I wanted to do. So I tried finding ways outside of school to show like my interests and like to do things that would help me explore economics further. So one major thing that I did in these like past 2 years is write a research paper. So I was a part of this program by Lumiere Education, where they helped like students learn how to do academic writing and write research papers. So I was mentored by a PhD student from Columbia, and like she helped me write a paper, and I worked on it for like 1.5 years. So I was writing the paper, I did an experiment, and then there was a long process of publishing it as well. So that was one thing that I did to show my interest in economics. And then apart from that, I did some online courses, which is something you can do, remotely, which is something I did in the pandemic. I did a course on behavioral finance and economics through like Coursera and edX. These are good like websites where you can do that. And then after that, I realized that like behavioral economics is like a particular field that I was interested in economics. So I mostly focused on that instead of, being too like spread out and trying out different things. I knew that like this is what I wanted to do. So this is one thing, and also like policy. So like actually putting economics into use through policy. So to explore that, I decided to do this governance and public policy program, where like we learned about different policies and like issues and how they're being resolved in the world. And then after that, I also did an internship through that program, where I worked for an organization and helped them write up a policy report, and I worked with other people to do that. So these are some ways where I managed to show my interest in economics, like other than in school. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Misha, for that. Misha has, of course, completed her IB from Dhirubhai Ambani School. She's the recipient of a couple of honors award at school, through her high school, recipient of academic excellence, all subject rounder, also the recipient of the Johns Hopkins Center for Talent Youth Award. I'm right? But Misha had not taken the SATs, and she hadn't submitted SAT scores.
But ACT.
ACT, correct.
Yeah.
And your ACT score was?
35.
Okay, fantastic. So yes, again, a point that we're trying to highlight through Misha's story is that she did not, show breadth. She showed depth. We don't have to stretch ourselves doing over 20 things. She identified that one thing and she honed into that. And again, an academic profile that goes without saying. Drummer. That's an interesting layer to you. Okay, my next question to Pranav. Pranav, your extracurriculars, how did your extracurriculars help you identify that the Viper program is the program, that you are most keen on? It's a great fit for you. And how did you continue working through your extracurriculars even through the pandemic? Is the mic? Yeah, it's on.
Okay, so for me, when I was researching like which college I wanted to apply to, it was obviously like I wanted to apply to a college with good material science program. But when I was like researching, what actually interested me was energy, and more so like very focused energy program which was offered by UPenn. So I saw that my extracurriculars were more or less focused on research towards sort of sustainability and sustainable environment. So which was like I wrote a research paper on how we can improve carbon emission and how we can improve the efficiency of catalytic converters inside cars. And I did a project with IIT Kanpur where I researched like properties of perovskite nanocrystals, which are essentially the new coming technology in solar panels. And I sort of tried to learn more about the industry as much as I could throughout these 2 years. I tried doing some courses, I tried writing some research, and I also did some internships with companies which were in the engineering environment and in the engineering field. So I think so that was more or less my internship and research part. But apart from that, my co-curriculars, I think so the main co-curricular which I took up was this project called Project Recharge, which was essentially we were building solar lamps out of waste PET bottles, and those cost around 300 rupees, and we were distributing them in villages where there was no electricity. So those lamps, like they charge around 4 hours, they give you light for about 8 hours, and they last for about 2 years. So that was one of the main projects which I took up, and I applied for some competitions with the project. So that was essentially how I worked my way through the pandemic. Apart from that, I made sure I stick to my interests. So I furthered my interest in guitar like by giving high levels of tonality, and then I started writing more poems and stuff like that. So I think so this it was just an all-rounded approach that and a little specific on what I was applying, which was getting me to the pandemic.
Thank you so much for that. And you're also the founder of the poetry club at your school. You've initiated inter and intra poetry competitions, and he's very passionate about mentoring his juniors. So thank you so much for that, Pranav. So that also, again, through his story, is highlighted the consistency that one needs to demonstrate when it comes to also your extracurriculars. And it is through his extracurriculars, right? He actually identified when he was visiting villages, he realized that energy is a major sort of a challenge out there. He constructed and powered powered lamps from discarded bottles. So that actually communicates to admissions that you've done something to know more about where your interest lies and how have you identified a problem, and now there's a solution that you want to work towards. And his essays, he's also mentioned that yes, the Viper program at UPenn is mainly focused on research and the collaboration between various research resources that he identified was a bottleneck through his extracurricular. So again, that connectivity is very important. And another example that I'll want to kind of share with you, for students, you may feel, okay, I have great data points. Data is your entire academic reflection through high school, your internal grades, subjects, external grades, awards, SAT, ACT. So you may feel, okay, I've got the data and that's good to go and I can have all my dream colleges on the list. So I'm going to share with you an example exactly like that. So we had a student last cycle, a US citizen based in the South. Again, I can't take names because we sign a privacy clause with families that we work with. Absolute solid data. 10 IGCSEs, A stars in all, 5 A-level subjects. Generally, students take 3 at the max score. He had 5 A-level subjects, A stars in all, only an A in English, a perfect score of 1600 in the SATs, recipient of multiple internal awards and external awards when it came to, the sciences, because he wanted to study quantum physics. But his extracurriculars were just very cursory. They didn't have that depth. It was not mirroring the intellectual, reflective, that this person actually was. His essays would blow you away. I mean, his essays actually blew me away, had me in goosebumps. But his extracurriculars, and when we of course, we knew it that this applicant was only into academics, was enjoying only that part of it, did some extracurriculars because he knew that the 9th, I want to apply to the US and, I'm not going to, only the extracurricular, only the grades are not going to work. Yes, we applied to top-notch colleges, but yes, his admits were compromised. So colleges are going to embrace that holistic overview. Colleges have told us that if they had to fill their classes with data alone, they would fill their classes 5 times. Is my mic on? They would fill their classes 4 times or 5 times over. They are not looking for only that. They're looking for students, and what are those students going to bring to our campus? That's what they are looking for. They're looking for global diversity. So it's very important that students do give this, the right thought process, because colleges are going to want to see you in a complete overall holistic evaluation. So yes, that's a little bit about extracurriculars. Moving on to the next slide, please. Interviews. Again, interviews is another component that our students sometimes take a little lightly. That okay, I have an interview tomorrow. I'll just go through my application. I'll just show up and let's see how that goes. Interviews are a very, very critical component, and they're getting more so critical now. Initially, yes, US many colleges do offer interviews. In the Indian liberal arts landscape, most of the colleges are offering and required interviews as a part of the process, and they are very critical. They can be deal breakers. So whether it's Ashoka, Kriya, Symbiosis, Flame, Plaksha, interview is a part of the application process, and it is selective. UK also, of course, has a rigid interview process for Oxbridge medicine. But even in the last 2 years, we've seen UK colleges asking, more and more UK colleges asking for interviews. We had Lancaster, Leeds, all these colleges where students had applied for media, film, they were asked for interviews. So interview is a component that one needs to work on. So when we work with students, if it's Oxbridge, we start working with students, and of course, Pranav, Anirudh will share a little bit about that, or medicine. We start working with them a good 8 to 9 months in advance. But even for students who are applying to the Indian Liberal Arts College or to Netherlands or to other colleges that require an interview, we ensure that the child is going to 3 to 4 rounds of mock interviews with different phases. So just to kind of reiterate that interviews are important, I would definitely address all the students and advise that do go through 2-3 different rounds with different phases. That gets you ready, because the interviews sometimes, especially the ones in India, they can be like Ashoka has a sort of a 2-team approach where one will be playing a bad cop, one will be playing a good cop. One tries to get you a little comfortable and friendly, and the other one is trying to be a little intimidating. So yes, prepare well for those interviews. So on that same line, Anirudh, my question to you is, the University of Cambridge application is an intensely academic one, right? Can you share with us your online interview experience, and how did you prepare for that?
Sure. So I think one of the key thing for the interview is just being familiar with the content that you have to be familiar with. And for me, at least, and what I think could be applicable for the rest and any Oxbridge applicant basically, is I just stayed within the IB portion. I didn't spend too much of my time studying outside the IB syllabus. And I'm applying for chemical engineering. So my basic subjects that I was going to be interviewed on were physics, chem, and math. That's expected, right? And I just stayed within the IB. I went really deep. I practiced a lot for the IB, but I didn't spend much time reading outside. I did a little reading, but that's just because I was interested and not for the interview. Because what they do in interview and even the pre-admission, the entrance exams in Oxbridge, they test very literally the content that you have in IB, but they twist it in different ways. They make you use logic in different situations, but everything is that basic content. So I'd say the more familiar you are with that basic content, the more likely you are to do better in the interview and the entrance exams. And in terms of the interviews, I'm not going to lie, they're pretty intense. They're pretty scary. And so the best thing to have before an interview is practice. And you need to have a little bit of confidence before you go into the interview, because being nervous and being confident can actually make the difference in answering a question. And then that one question that you answer well or badly could actually make the difference between whether you're admitted or not into the college. Like, I can give an example. There was a chem question that they asked in my interview. I mean, I'm not supposed to say a lot about it, but I feel like I was very nervous for that question, and I didn't answer it as well as I could have, because we had done a similar question in the practice before, and I answered that really well. So practicing with the red pen was honestly really helpful, because it gave me a sense of what the feeling of interviews are, because they're not anything that you're familiar with. They're not like school. They're not like a normal interview you give for a position in the student government or the council in your school. They're a very different, very academic kind of interview. So being familiar with that situation and practicing really helps. Also, I've been for 2 interviews, the Cambridge interview and the Imperial interview. And a common thing is that just to kick the interview off, they do ask questions on your personal statement. So familiarizing yourselves in and out with the personal statement and being ready to talk about what you've written is also pretty important while coming to in considering the interviews.
Perfect. Thank you so much for highlighting, especially that fine point that there's a difference between being nervous, confident, and that practice definitely helps. one more important point to note out here on especially the Oxbridge interviews is that they are testing your logic and your critical thinking. It's not about coming to the right answer. There may be no right or wrong answer, but they are evaluating how are you coming to it. And that's exactly what, Anirudh was trying to, in the question that you were asked also, right?
Yeah.
They were evaluating how is he thinking towards it. They are not looking at that final right answer or the wrong answer, right?
Yeah, I didn't get the right answer. I was not even close to it.
Oh, lovely.
But it's basically how you have to think aloud what your method is. It's not like an exam where you just write down the working and then give the answer. You have to say, why am I writing this step down? What's the importance of this step? What assumption did you make in that step? That's the kind of stuff that they're looking for, not the actual result of the answer.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Anirudh, for sharing that. I'm sure all the students in the house are going to take interviews a lot more seriously now. Okay, my next question to Pranav. Can you throw some light on you had two interviews, right? You had an alumni interview and one was a faculty interview. That was a faculty from the Viper program that you had one with. So can you share, the difference between the two and your experience with the two?
So when I was looking at the interview requirements, there was this thing called a prospective student meeting that was that you could have held with one of the faculty members at the Viper program. So I opted for that meeting, and I was connected to the managing director of the program, and this was essentially an interview where I would ask the questions, because this was just something, because I was inquisitive about the program and I was applying. So I wanted to know more about the program, how I could apply better. And this was sort of a boon, because you could just go there, clarify your doubts, and in the most honest way possible, because that would not affect your admissions process. So some interviews like this, if colleges offer these interviews or meetings, you should take them and just clarify your doubts, tell them about yourself a little more, so that they're you're in the back of their minds, and then also you're clear with how you should apply and get more clarity on the process. My second interview was one which affected the decision. So one after I had applied. So that was with an alumni, and he was a Viper alumni. And so what happened was we started off the interview with some generic questions, and some stuff he was asking me where I'm from, why I decided to go to Penn, stuff like that. But then it became sort of a more education interview when he started asking me questions about energy research and current affairs and stuff which are happening right now. But I think so these interviews is just about how you converse with them, how they think you'll be able to present yourself at Penn, how comfortable you'll be on campus. So more so than looking at it in a very educational perspective, I say just for the US interviews, you can go in a manner where you're more confident, and sort of more you're able to converse more freely with them.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Pranav. So yes, the US interview process is one that could be conversational. It's not, of course, academic, but you have to know what you've submitted really well. But it's also an opportunity for you to ask them questions, the right kind of questions, to let them know that you've also done your research. So it's a two-way sort of a street, and you should ensure that you've done that groundwork before going to that interview itself. Okay, moving on to the, can we change the slide, please? Moving on to the next component, which is generic application process takeaways, where our panelists will share with students their sort of advice or challenges, basic other challenges that will be coming your way, and how can you be well prepared. So my first question for Misha, what factors did you consider while finalizing Rice as your early decision, given the fact that you also had UChicago legacy? That was a major point of consideration and discussion. So what made you hone and decide that, okay, Rice is the place, not firstly that I just want to go to, but I want to even apply ED?
Yeah. So my dad he did his MBA at UChicago. So I had the legacy status, and it was a college that he really wanted me to go to. And so I was considering it. And I also had, what I wanted in mind. And Rice was one of my top choices. So I think this decision was very difficult for me, and it took me a long time to decide where I wanted to apply ED. So I think to make my final decision, I just decided to look at what I wanted, what I really wanted. And I knew that I wanted a small college with a community feel, and I wanted a good experience, because like a lot of people don't focus on like how they don't think about the fact that they're going to be at this college that they're choosing for 4 years, and they have to like spend that time and they have to thrive and make the best of it. And you can only do that when the college is a good fit for you. So I was focusing more on that. I realized that Rice was a better fit for me because, like I said, it's community, it has residential colleges, which makes everybody come really close together. There are only 4,000 undergraduates, so it's really small as well. And it has a really nice campus. It's in the center of the city. And it has a semester system as opposed to a quarter system, which is what UChicago follows. So I thought that semester would be better for me because it's less stressful. There aren't exams all of the time. And also the environment at Rice at UChicago is very like academically focused. And I think I wanted something different from my high school experience. So I was focusing on that, and like Rice ranks very high on the quality of life indicators, happiness indicators. So that's really what I was focusing on. And I personally think that like a lot of people focus too much maybe on rankings. Like rankings are important, but it's only the first step. I think that all of like the top 20, 30 schools have like similar levels of academics, and after that point you should focus on like what you really want. There's no point, like I didn't apply to any IBs because I knew that none of them were like a good fit for me. And like at first my parents were like, what are you doing? Like how can you not apply to any IBs? But then I was like, I knew what I wanted, so eventually I got them over to my side, and I applied to Rice. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Misha, for that. You've highlighted some really, really valuable points in terms of, number one, students and families need to look beyond only the academic ranking. Look at rankings that actually you want to have as an experience for yourself. Misha very much did that. She looked at rankings where it came to, the student life component or the faculty, the quality of teaching component, just things not only restricted to the academic rankings. That's number one that she kind of mentioned. Early decision is something, again, that, we wanted to highlight through her story. So again, for families who are not familiar, early decision 1, early decision 2, these are application options offered by the US institutions, but these are binding ones. Early decision means you are committing to going to that university if admitted. It is binding. You will be signing a contract. Your parents will be signing off on it. Your school counselor will be signing off on it. So if then you receive an admission from any other university across the globe, you are committed to going to the university that you applied early decision. So again, Misha took into consideration various of, the variety of these factors, and then applied taking the advantage of early decision, because in early decision, your chances of getting admitted are on an average bumped up by a good 18 to 20%. So that was my question to Misha. Misha, I have another question for you. What would be your advice for your juniors?
Yeah, so I think like following up from my previous answer only, it's important to like be like headstrong, and like if you know what you want, so first figure out what you want, right? So like start early, decide like, do you want like a small college, or do you want like a larger college, and you want to be in a city or like in a more quiet area, and like what kind of environment do you want? You want to be in a university where like sports is really important, there's high school spirit, and like also academics, of course, like whether they have a good program for the major you're applying for. And yeah, so just look at all of those factors and then decide really early what you want. Then look for the colleges that like sort of fit that what you're looking for, and then like be sure in your decision, so that like you won't, in the next 4 years, you'll be like happy where you are, and like make sure that other people don't sway your decision too much. Like obviously listen to them and take into account their opinion, but make sure that they don't make you like do something you don't want. And yeah, like starting early will also help you with other things. You'll be able to research colleges earlier, and you'll be able to write better essays, and yeah, do better overall in your application.
Thank you so much, Misha, for that. My next question to Anirudh, how did starting the process early help you?
So I think especially because I applied to both the UK and the US, I had a lot of different deadlines with different systems to keep in mind. I think starting early, especially because in our school at least, they made us start like way earlier than the normal than what other schools did. So I was writing my personal statement like in the Jan of 11th grade, stuff like that. And I think that really helped me keep my sights set on the final goal as well. Because when you are in the middle of the application process, it's very easy to lose sight of what you're actually doing in the future, what the long term plan is. And I feel like starting early, getting some basic stuff out of the way. Like, for example, I finished my ACT off before IB started. So that was a major pressure lifted off me. And that allowed me to like really focus on my essays, but also IB because everyone talks about IB and admissions process going hand in hand. And it kind of gets difficult when you're in the 12th grade and right in the middle of that to keep a good balance between the actual IB and the admissions process. Because what's the point of focusing on the admissions process if you're not focusing on IB? And then at the same time, what's the point of IB if you're not focusing on the admissions process? So starting early and managing your time well is very important so that you know you also have the time, you give yourself the time to know what you want. Because it's like people tell you, oh, do you know what you want? But it's not that easy to know what you want. I don't know if I still don't know if what I'm doing is actually what I want. So
I'm sure that's going to make so many parents happy and so many kids also comfortable today.
yeah, honestly, it's really not that easy to actually know what you actually want to do because at the end of the day, we're just 18, we're just 16 or 17 and 18. We've lived in Mumbai all our life. We genuinely don't know what it's going to be like when we go. And for me, like everyone talks about how good a college is, a fit is for you. And I agree with that. I agree. Do your research, see where you can stand in terms of your college. But at the end of the day, you're also not going to know how it feels to be in a college unless you are in that college.
Absolutely.
So while also looking at fit, also look at what you want to do and just making sure that you love what you are doing so that you can be happy wherever you are.
Absolutely. And I guess that requires a lot of reflection, right? Thank you so much. I think that's a really happy applause. Families are relaxed and yes, we are normal. And this is a very normal thing that our kids are also experiencing. So thank you so much for that. And Anirudh, I believe, because you started early, you also got that heads up time to, I think you went through 15 or 16 rounds for the mock interview. Yeah. So Anirudh, when did you start your mock interview practice?
I think so. My actual interview was in like late December of last year. And we probably started interviews in March. Like as soon as my first term exams got over, we just started interviews.
So good 9 months in advance is when we prep if you are looking towards, medicine, Oxford, Cambridge, all of that. So thank you, Anirudh, for, I think, reassuring a lot of families out here. My next question to Janvi. How did your college research and your college, exploration journey help you narrow down to Carnegie Mellon as your choice?
I started with like the top 20 computer science colleges just to get an idea of what some of the top programs in the US offer and just to see what I like, what I dislike, get a general idea of what computer science even really is because most of us think computer science is just coding, but it's a very small part of computer science. So I went on like college websites. I checked LinkedIn, which tend to have more updated information on what is happening in the college. But I also went on Reddit and Quora because that gives you a more like a better understanding of what the college experience is like. And if you hear students from the college talk about what they're doing or how they like it there. The reason I narrowed my ED college down to CMU was two reasons. The first one was, of course, academic reputation. CMU is known to be one of the top computer science colleges in the US. It is also notorious for having like a very tough and rigorous curriculum. I also found a lot of professors that were doing a lot of research that was similar to what I was interested in. That is detection of diseases using image processing and machine learning. And so I kind of liked the fact that I would have some mentorship to guide me in what I was leaning towards, and just having a more rigorous and challenging curriculum was something that I looked forward to. The other reason was CMU's approach to interdisciplinary learning. It has this program called ID8, which allows you to basically take an arts major and a science major and kind of mix them around and see what you want to do with that. Like I said before, I have been doing Odissi dance for the past 13 years. I also write, I sing. So I am like an artistically inclined person. And the idea of combining computer science and something within the arts was exciting. I also read over and over again about how passionate and driven students at CMU were. And I was just looking forward to being a part of that peer group because it kind of pushes you and motivates you to just really test your limits.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Janvi. And what we would like the audience to know is that doing college research in various ways other than the website is what Janvi did. She really went deep into LinkedIn to know more about what the faculty was doing. She went deeper into college websites, whether it's Reddit, whether it's College Confidential, to know the student perspective. And yes, you know, colleges, especially over the last 2 years, they are taking an added effort to throw themselves out there on social media. So whether it's Instagram, whether it's their Twitter, whether it's their LinkedIn pages, whether virtual tours, they are doing a lot to get them to really know you better. So they really want to know that, are you also taking that effort? Also, one important thing to note is that many colleges use something called big data. They use big data to see which student, what IP has, you know, visited their website, how many on what websites. All of this is also tracked by a couple of universities. So the point being that you have things to research at the tip of your fingertips. It takes a little bit of time, effort, energy, and planning ahead of time. But do take, you know, that effort and time, because it'll not only help you identify what you seek for yourself, what is it the college is offering, and all of this can be weaved into your essays. You will get so much more to talk about in your essays that, you know, on this, I saw, like, you know, the professor being awarded the Fulbright scholar XYZ, and, you know, he's done this research, and, you know, I've been working on this program, and I would love to, you know, be mentored under him. So it gives you more material to tie that story tighter for yourself. So with that, we come, you know, we're close to wrapping up our first panel, but I would like to share one, you know, sort of a story or an incident that's going to not only give context to everything that our panelists are sharing today, but a lot of context to what we at the Red Pen really want you to walk away with today. So of late, you would have been hearing of, you know, many high schools sharing their admit records, their admission data points, basically a celebration of admission, right? Now, there was this one high school teacher. She hosted a very different sort of a celebration. She had a paper shredder. She invited all her fall 2022 applicants. She had them put their letters of rejection through that paper shredder. It was a rejection celebration. Why am I sharing this story today with you all? What is the takeaway that I'm seeking that you parents and students really take away from this? 2 takeaways. First being, the college applications, you know, landscape has drastically changed over the last 2 years. Colleges have witnessed a never seen before, a record-breaking rise in their volume of applications. What happens when the volume rises? The rejection volume also rises. So you may be a great fit, you may be a fantastic profile, but ultimately that's only those many students that a college can admit, because it's not like they've widened their admit pool, right? There are only those many seats. So first takeaway from this story is that, yes, it's easy to have your dream colleges listed, but absolutely imperative now to identify those target colleges, those safety colleges that you truly will enjoy attending, that you truly will thrive at, and they are offering you that undergrad experience that you seek for yourself. Because of this, you know, entire landscape changing, and there are various factors to, you know, the reason the colleges have witnessed this spike in their applications. But due to that, the outcome is equally unpredictable. So very important that you strategize around this. Use your early application, use your early decision options very, very wisely. Early decision, not only, of course, I mean, and we've seen it, we've been speaking to other consultants as well. Everybody has witnessed in the last 2 cycles that the students who applied in the early decision pool, they had better outcomes. You are competing against a smaller pool. Colleges also know it's a sure shot yield, right? They know it's a sure shot convert for them. They fill up their classes up to 50% in early decision. So look beyond rankings, yes, have your dream colleges, but identify those colleges also that are equally giving you that opportunity and, you know, strengthen that application of yours. What is my second takeaway? Second takeaway is that there is no formula to getting admitted to your dream colleges. If we had a formula, we would all be millionaires, but there is no formula out here. It is a very organic process. I would have these 3 ingredients in the secret sauce. First being, start early. If you're in grade 9, if you're in grade 10, start here, right now. I think we've given you a lot of, food for thought. But yes, starting the application process, thinking, ideating early will help you have that stronger narrative at the end of those 4 years. Starting early will give you so much more to not only work and develop your profile, but know yourself better, know what you enjoy, and understand the entire sort of experience that you're seeking for. The second ingredient, you do not need to do 20 zillion things. You do not have to spread yourself so thin. Identify those 2 things or 3 things and hone into them in great depth. I think our panelists today have discussed, they probably picked 1 or 2 and they went about it consistently over the next 2-3 years, but they showed a lot of depth in that. That's what leaves an impression on the admissions. They want to see that depth. They don't want to see 20 things that you've started and discontinue. They want to see what have you genuinely passionate about and what have you done with that. And my third ingredient, and of course the last but not the least, is consistency. Be consistent in what you do, because the way you progress and the way you hone yourself in your 4 years of high school indicates to them the kind of college student you're going to be. They don't get an opportunity to meet, they are evaluating thousands of applications, right? They don't get that opportunity to meet you. But how do they really know you? They know you through your various layers of application and of course your essays and all of that. But most importantly, they also want to see the consistency that you've demonstrated in everything that you've kind of taken forward. So again, not a formula, but yes, if you have to take away a secret sauce from here today, this should be your secret sauce, because this will go a long way, not only in achieving better outcomes, but also achieving exactly the kind of experience that you want for your high school, for your undergrad experience. And I'm not just saying this, we are mentoring students year on year. So of course, that is one thing. But even after every admission cycle, we are comparing profiles. We are seeing profiles that work. We are seeing profiles that didn't work. We are talking to admission officers year on year, all year round. We are also participating in educational conferences. So when I say this, that starting early, showing depth in your extracurriculars and consistency will go a long way in helping you achieve that outcome. I'm saying that with a lot of data-backed evidence. So I think I shall wrap up here. I've given you a lot of food for thought. And with that, I'll hand it over to, we'll have Mehnaz Jafar, undergrad admissions, my co-manager, and the second panelist, and a loud round of applause for the first panelist here. Thank you so much. You want my mic?
Hello. On? Hello. Hello. Can everyone hear me? Thank you so much, Sheetal, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being such a fantastic audience today. I have to say it's been wonderful to see everyone in person, and I can see that some of you, after our previous panel discussion, are smiling, and some of you not so much. And that's probably because you've already begun to make that mental to-do list, or are already thinking about what is that compelling story about myself that I want to tell the admissions officers. And that's really great, because that's the whole point of this exercise. That's why we are having this event here today. And we want to hear directly from students who've achieved, which I think all you guys here want to achieve what these students have achieved. So with that, I would like to very quickly start this conversation by sharing a tip of the day. Now, I have to warn you all that when I start talking to my children, more often than not, when I share a tip, they want to run in the other direction. But today, since I know I have you all in this room and the exits are pretty much blocked, I'm going to seize this opportunity and share with you what I truly believe in. I have to say that I'm a firm believer that exploration within your academics and within your personal life is key to being successful. Now, never underestimate the scope of going beyond your comfort zone. If you're someone who wants to start up a business, if you're someone who wants to swim in the open sea, of course, you need to be a swimmer for that. If you're someone who wants to participate in a theatrical performance, by all means, go ahead and do it. There's nothing stopping you. None of us here expect you to kind of change the world this summer, but all we as mentors want you to do is do things that you truly love. Do things that you feel passionately about, because during that process of doing these things, you're going to learn a little bit more about yourself. And now with that, I'm very, very quickly going to introduce myself. My name is Mehnaz Jafar, and I head the undergraduate services together with my co-manager, Sheetal Vora. A little bit about my background. I have spent a large number of my growing up years in the UK. I went to boarding school there. I did my degree from University of Manchester. And very shortly after that, I moved back to India and worked as an education consultant with a British company, helping students primarily, who were looking to study in the UK. I've been part of the Red Pen now for the last 5 years and have looked at the education landscape as a student, of course, as an education consultant, of course, but more importantly, as a parent as well. So I have a son who's recently graduated from Carnegie Mellon, and I have a 16-year-old daughter who is raring to go. And I think with that, that's enough about me. And I think we'll get into the next part of our conversation. Now, over the past year, I think we've been very, very privileged to be working with very talented and gifted young men and women who have applied to extremely competitive majors like architecture, like medicine, like music, and material science. And now, with no further ado, I'd like to invite the next set of panelists, Yash, Alia, and Harsh. Can I have you on stage? Sorry, give us a minute. Thank you so much, panelists, for being here. It's lovely to be hosting you all. Can I very quickly request you all to introduce yourselves, your name, the college that you'll be attending, and the major that you'll be pursuing?
Hi, my name is Yash Tharia. I just graduated from the Dhirubhai Ambani International School, and I'll be studying material sciences at the Northwestern University.
A little bit about Yash. Yash undertook a research with Lumiere Education. He's interned at NGL Fine Chemicals. He's a house captain at Dhirubhai Ambani School and loves to play soccer. Harsh, over to you.
Hi, I'm Harsh Thakkar, and I was a student at Rhode College. I'll be attending Rhode Island School of Design to major in architecture.
And a little bit about Harsh. Harsh interned with Investin in their Young Architect program. He loves to play the guitar. He's the head boy, and he's penned over 25 poems. Over to you, Alia.
Hi, I'm Alia, and I'm going to Vanderbilt University. I just graduated from VIS, and I'm going to be studying music composition and math, like a double major.
A little bit about Alia. Alia's elected head of student council at Bombay International School. She's played the violin since 2009 and has participated in over 25 performances, not only in Mumbai, but in Jaipur and Abu Dhabi as well. And I think with that, we'll open up our conversation with our panelists today. And Harsh, I think I'd like to start with you. Now, Harsh was a student who initially in the months leading up to the application was debating whether he wanted to apply for art or architecture. But once he had actually made up his mind that architecture it's going to be, there was really nothing stopping him. So I think, Harsh, what everyone here will probably benefit from hearing from you is how did you actually surpass those mental blocks and push those boundaries to get through that mammoth task of making sure that you had all the application components for architecture ready in time?
Sure. So I'll start with how my journey into art began. So along with the application for architecture, there's a requirement called the portfolio, which consists of 15 to 20 original artworks created by the applicant. And it's a cohesive submission of those to the university to have them assess your skills, your hands-on skills. So once I started working on my portfolio, delved further into what the word art actually consisted of or what it actually meant. So before I started working on my portfolio, my definition of art was limited to just sketches using references from probably Pinterest or Google. But when I actually started working on the portfolio, I realized that it's much, much more than what you actually see on the internet. There are a variety of mediums, a variety of artists and techniques to work on, a variety of play. When I was actually into it, I realized that when I'm working on it, it's not something I'm working on because it's a requirement, or it's something that people have asked me to work on, but it's coming out organically out of me. And at that point, I realized that art is the thing I would want to pursue further and delve much, much more into it. But when I actually got into the post graduation scene of art, as the common conception is that it has its own challenges when it comes to art. And when you actually look at practicing art at a global scale, it was a kind of a compromising field. So when I discussed it with my counselors and parents, I realized that I also had an inclination towards science in the beginning, and architecture seemed like a fit which combined both of my interests into science and art. And actually, the thing that got me surely into architecture was the fact that architecture allows you to create art, but in a life-size format. It allows the people it allows you to create a memory for a person visiting a certain space, which probably nothing else would be able, no other major would be able to. And that's how I decided upon architecture as my final field.
Great, Harsh. Harsh, could you possibly elaborate a little bit? Typically, when students are applying for majors within the arts like architecture, you need to submit anywhere between 12 and 20 additional pieces. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the portfolio is, as I mentioned, a collection of original artworks, and it can range from any medium of artworks. For example, it could be paintings, drawings, installations, sculptures, any mixed media work, film, animation, photography, poetry, basically anything that comes under the word creation. Working on the portfolio or at the beginning of my application.
Amazing. I have to applaud the hard work that you must have put in. Obviously, all these different application components meant that you were probably burning the midnight oil, so to speak. And with that, Alia, I'm going to have you join the conversation. Now, Alia, of course, is someone who was interested in math and music. And I have to say that in my generation, when I was growing up, and children spoke to their parents and expressed that they wanted to study something within the arts arena, more often than not, the question that the parent would come back to the child would be, and what are you planning to do with a degree like that? Or what is your plan B? And I like to joke and say that, things like TV programs that we've seen, like America's Got Talent or the Indian Idol, or So You Think You Can Dance, has brought to light that, careers within these areas not only bring you a lot of money, also a lot of fame. So it's great to see a shift in the paradigm. And I have to say, over the last so many years, not only have I seen parents being supportive of their children, I've also seen them very, very encouraging when they see that their children are truly talented within the arts areas. So it's so refreshing to see this great shift. Now, Alia, you are someone, who applied to over 12 schools and you had multiple applications. Can you talk to us a little bit about the additional components for your music applications?
Yeah, sure. So because I was applying to like conservatory style programs within larger colleges. So for example, I'm going to Vanderbilt and they have the Blair School of Music within that. I also applied to like Northwestern, USC, Johns Hopkins, which all have their own like individual conservatories within the larger schools. So for that, I think there were 3 main steps in my application. So I had my normal essays because all of those schools review their applications holistically. So they also took into account the Common App essay, the Y major essays, and other essays like that. So I had that like Common App section of the application. Then I also had my music portfolio, which was actually viewed by the teachers, like the professors reviewed that. And then finally I had my audition. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on my portfolio and what it entailed basically. So I applied for music composition. So I had to, for all schools, I had to submit 3 original compositions by me. I think something that's really important to keep in mind, and this holds true for music, but I'm sure it kind of holds true for other forms of art as well, is that when you do your portfolio, they're not really looking for perfection. And a lot of the professors told me this. They're not looking for that perfect composition, which is like where the syntax is all great, like the music syntax, and where it's presented really nicely with like a high-tech recording. They're not looking for that at all. And in fact, if your composition is that perfect and it doesn't seem very organic, then that's a big red flag for them. They're honestly just looking for an idea and a bit of creativity and originality. So for one of my compositions, I deconstructed Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I did it for a string quartet. That was one of them. Then for another one, I did a piece inspired by Jaipur, which is a city I really love. But I did like an anti-Orientalist approach, in the sense that, you know, often Indian cities are portrayed to be very like mysterious and mythical by Westerners. So I kind of did an approach which countered that a little bit, and I spoke about that in my audition. And I think that made the application a bit more personal to me, a bit more interesting. And I know for a fact that half of my like dynamics, half of the things that I wrote were all over the place. Like in retrospect, when I look back on it, it was a mess. And even my actual recordings, like I got them recorded, there were mistakes in it. And I don't think anyone cared. Even if they cared a little bit, it didn't swing anything in a drastic way. And I think honestly, just having that creative spark and that excitement and that originality is so much more important than giving like a bland but perfect portfolio. So I think that's something that is really important when it comes to the portfolio. And also just remembering stuff about you that makes you unique when it comes to this application pool. Like the fact that so I applied for music composition, like Western classical music composition. So there were not a lot of Indians who applied for that. So I made sure to incorporate a bit of like an Indian element in my application and stuff to make it interesting and make it stand out. And then after my portfolio was reviewed by the professors, I had auditions. So that was like the second round. And again, in auditions, it was mostly just an interview with the professors where I had to talk about my portfolio a little more, talk about my musical experience. Interestingly enough, like in Vanderbilt, so for most of the music school auditions, they just asked me like more about my experience in violin than my compositions and stuff. And in Vanderbilt, suddenly they started asking me like, what other than music? And for a second, I was taken aback, because of course I've done things outside of music, but I came in thinking like music audition, they're going to want to know about music. And I ended up speaking about my position as chairperson of my student council. I ended up talking about my interest in English literature, which is not even something that's not even my double major. Like it's my double major is math. I started talking about random things. And even later on, when I spoke to my professor, like recently, he mentioned stuff that I had spoken about in my audition. So yeah, I think just not going in with a tunnel vision of what you have to say, and actually listening to the question that you're asked and answering it is really important. And apart from that, I had a couple of music theory tests for USC actually, which was the most terrifying one. I had to make a song in 2 hours. Like they gave me the lyrics and the vocals, and I had to produce the song in 2 hours. And we joined a Zoom, and there were all these kids sitting in like high-tech studios, and I was literally on my bedroom floor with my dollhouse behind me. It was very embarrassing. But yeah, I think something that I learned from that is that honestly, having all the fancy equipment in the world doesn't really get you into the school. It's just more about having, again, that excitement and originality and energy that you bring to your portfolio and audition.
I would like to say something
Sure.
to that the fact that the portfolio actually is your original self is so true for any arts major per se, because the portfolio is the most crucial part of your application. It is the thing that gives the university officers an actual insight into what your physical hands-on approach is, what your level of critical thinking is, what is the skill set you possess apart from your academics. Because when you're going into an arts field, of course academics play a certain role, but a major role is your practical ability to work on something, and that's where the portfolio comes into play. It projects your skills. So it's very important to be very original in your portfolio. It doesn't matter if it's not completely finessed, but it needs to be your original self. It needs to portray your character into it. It needs to portray how you think, and that's how the officers get an insight into who you are as a creator as such.
Yeah, I think both your answers are so genuine and true to yourselves. And I feel like when you truly love something, it genuinely doesn't seem like a huge task, right? But in conclusion, I have to say that students, whenever you're thinking of applying to majors within the arts, whether it's music, dance, architecture, please do not take this as a casual undertaking. This is a mammoth task. The kind of hard work and labor that is involved is huge. The artistic review is a very, very important application component. So the minute you kind of have that aha moment that this is what I want to do, I think that's the time you make sure you start researching the various different colleges, make sure you know what their requirements are so that you can start checking off the different boxes. Make a plan, have a roadmap in place, and make sure that you're going about these things in a very systematic manner. And now with that, I think, Yash, that brings me to a little bit of a conversation with you. Now, Yash, you applied to study material science, which is not a major that really requires an additional portfolio or any additional prep work, so to speak. However, I have to say that, you know, you followed a very conventional pathway. You studied at Dhirubhai Ambani School. You're studying the IB curriculum. And you have done HLs like math, physics, and chemistry. More often than not, when we see students with this combination of subjects, we see that they apply for majors within the engineering. So whether it's mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, computer science, but you kind of decided to take a road less traveled and apply to study material science. Now, can you tell us what was the realization that brought you to explore this major?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing that I want to clarify is that I didn't take engineering because I don't want to restrict myself to doing, say, like a mechanical or an electrical, because I really don't know if that's what I'm going to like. I really don't know if that's something that I want to even do in the future. So when it comes to material science, the way I discovered that was actually by having a lack of engineering courses to actually take. So when you go to college websites, the first thing you do is like look at the college, the courses that they offer. And going through the engineering courses, I was just like, yeah, I don't really want to do any of this. So you have that moment of realization where, you know, I did the conventional thing, but maybe the outcome doesn't have to really be conventional. So that's when you discover something interdisciplinary, and you realize that every subject that you do doesn't have to be compartmentalized and isolated. They can all fuse into one perfect subject, which I found to be material sciences. So it includes things like physics, chemistry, and subjects I haven't even taken, like biology and nanomaterials and all sorts of crazy things that I really want to get to know, that I may never have even looked at or even know about in school, but it's something I'm going to discover at college. So really, it's being able to have the courage to go into a field where you know you might be blown away by things, but you also know you are going to have some form of specific knowledge in specific areas of the subject.
Great, thank you so much. And with that, I have to say, students, in the US especially, there are over 4,000 institutions offering major flexibility. So if you're someone who wants to explore doing a major and a minor, or you want to double major, please make sure that you're researching all the various programs that are on offer, and make sure that when you actually go on campus that you're exploring all these options that are available to you. So make the most of all these different majors that are on hand that you can actually study. And with that, I think I'd like to come back to you, Alia. Now again, Alia, you wrote, several different essays. Not only did she write supplemental essays, which Sheetal spoke about, she applied to 12 different colleges, so she wrote supplemental essays for that. She applied for multiple scholarships, and she applied for music school, so she had additional essays for that as well. Now, Alia, I'm going to kind of talk about your essay writing process in a different perspective. More often than not, when we speak to students, I think the conventional answer that we get from them about how did you manage kind of balancing your academics and your application process, writing all these essays. And they come back and they say, oh, okay, I started the process early and I researched the college as well. But I feel like Alia here can actually provide us a little bit of a refreshing perspective to this. She actually took this task head on. What she actually did is she researched all these colleges and she used that as a process to get to know each and every college a little bit more, right, Alia? And I think through that process, she found a few colleges that she felt she could really call home. And she thought that, this is where I'm going to be happy for the next 4 years. So if you can talk us through about how you managed to get through all these different essays.
Yeah, sure. So I think when it comes to essays, firstly, it seems very overwhelming because there are just so many. And even though they seem even though they're similar, they're not the same. Like there'll be one word different between like two schools' essays, and that word changes everything and you have to take a different approach. But I think one of the most important things that I realized while going through this application process is that don't approach your essays and everything under a cloud of misery. Like continue meeting your friends, continue having a life, do extracurriculars that are not like going to count for something huge. Because honestly, for a bit, while I was doing my portfolio and doing like a gazillion essays, I kind of gave up on having a social life. And it did impact the quality of my essays because I feel like you have to approach them from a place of joy and excitement and love for what you're doing. And if you feel like this is robbing you of your friends and of your happiness, then you're not going to have that joy for it. So honestly, like especially to the kids who are in the audience, like obviously don't go overboard, but continue to like go for parties, meet your friends and have a fun time, because honestly it will really help your application, your essays and your general mental health when you go in for this. So I think that was something that was really important. And the second thing was also to do with scholarship essays. So I applied for a couple of scholarships because the US is just crazy expensive. And I thought like, why not? And ironically, the scholarship that I ended up getting, which was to Vanderbilt, wasn't based on an essay. But even so, when it comes to scholarship essays, I think, of course, start early and stuff. But especially when it comes to scholarship essays, they're really looking for like a spark and some extra, something about you that's a little special and a little unique. So I think just rather than just getting bogged down under a cloud of essays and just writing and writing and writing at 4 a.m., which is what I was also doing, just sit and think, go through the list of essays, spend more time thinking about what you're going to write than actually just mass writing essays. And I think you'll be fine.
Awesome, Alia. Alia, I was just wondering, do you think you can share with us an essay that kind of stood out in your head while you were doing your applications, particularly for music school?
Yeah, so for music school, I had a couple of shocks. So basically, when I opened my portal to submit most of my applications with my portfolio, suddenly they would throw up these massive essays. Like CMU had an unlimited word essay about my creative process. And you have to understand that most of these essays are 300, 400 word limits for most schools. So when you see unlimited words for CMU, you want to like fill those unlimited words. So yeah, I think when it comes to that, especially for music school essays, just really writing from the heart, because the professors, and probably for art school and stuff as well, I don't know that much about it, but I can't speak, but I know for some other art majors, like the professors themselves read it. So it's a lot more conversational, a lot more from the heart. You don't have to I think what was important is don't package yourself too much. Don't view yourself too much as like a product that you're trying to sell to them, which is what I was initially kind of thinking of it as. Just honestly talk from the heart, and just write about your creative process, why you love that art form so much, or anything you're doing so much. And yeah.
Thank you, Alia. And I have to say, obviously, you can see the passion through her answers here today. And just to give everyone a little bit more context, Alia was actually admitted to many colleges, and just a few names: John Hopkins, UNC Chapel Hill, University of Southern California, Northwestern, Rice, and Washington St. Louis. Okay, sorry, my bad. Washington St. Louis. So, okay, there was one college that didn't accept you, but that's their loss, right? So yeah, wonderful lineup. And I have to say, like, speaking to all three of you and hearing from the panel discussion that we had earlier, the kind of motivation and determination that I see in each one of you is exemplary. So kudos to you all for that. And with that, Harsh, I'm actually going to have you talk to us a little bit about the essay components that you had to tackle. You applied to 3 colleges, right? And if you can just tell us a little bit about the essay writing process and, the RISD challenge, if you can elaborate a little on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So how the essay started for me was before actually starting with my college essays, the essays I used to write were just, what would you do if you were a prime minister, or what would you do if you were a bird? So these kind of essays were something I was tackling for the first time ever. So when I actually got to writing the first drafts for my common application essay, they had more kind of a fantasy kind of element in it rather than a detail or factual elements into it. So when that happened, the essay specialist from the Red Pen helped me brainstorm the kind of storylines which would suit for my common application essay. So we went through a lot of different themes, like for example, I was inclined towards poetry at the point of my application period. So why not write about poetry? Or I just gotten into the art scene per se, so why not write about the art scene? And then the actual thing I ended up writing about was something I faced during my portfolio process or my essay writing process, and those are mental blocks. So I thought that topic was something in which I could incorporate both my poetry and my exposure to art, and how during that process of creation, I faced mental blocks, and the process of getting out of the mental blocks, the kind of self mechanisms I developed throughout the process. So I elaborated upon those elements in my common application essay. And when it came to the supplemental essays, out of the 3 universities I applied, only 2 had a requirement of supplemental essays. And there was one essay which focused which had a prompt which asked me to elaborate upon what got me into art, architecture, design, or writing. So how I started with that essay was, I was just watching a Netflix documentary about the world's most extraordinary homes. And the first episode of that documentary started with an architect sitting on a boat's hull, speaking into the camera in Florida. And I thought, why not make such a dramatic entrance to my essay as well? So I started with writing about how that architect was sitting on the boat's hull, and how the show, The World's Most Extraordinary Homes, actually got me excited about architecture, because it was something which gave you that visual experience of the architectural scene, the post-architecture period of how people envisioned the spaces and how they kind of conversed with the spaces. And I ended up writing about of course, my introduction to art at an art gallery. So simultaneously to my portfolio process, I visited an art gallery for the first time ever. And I still remember that day. It was 14 January 2021. And it's been a day which I cannot forget, because that's where it all began for me. It's been a joyride after that, because I found a resource which was abundantly available, lesser known to the people, and was kind of an epitome of inspiration. Like, you just enter an art gallery, and I found multiple ideas of working on my portfolio. So I ended up writing about that. Then I spoke about an architecture internship I did with a London-based firm, wherein we were given a brief, a client's brief, and we had to create a kind of architectural, I think, a mind map of catering to the client's needs. So that gave me a professional insight into what the architectural profession actually looks like. And that's something that also propelled me towards architecture rather than art, because I realized that there is art into architecture, and there is much more than art into architecture as well. My process of actually deciding to go abroad started 6 months into the 11th grade. I was planning to do it in India before. So I had started my entrance exams, started my coaching classes for the Indian architecture entrance exam. And in those 6 months of period, what I learned in the classes was also something I mentioned in one of my supplemental essays. So it was kind of a cohesive essay about all of my past experiences and all of probably my future aspirations into that particular field I wanted to study.
Thank you so much, Harsh, for that. And this again kind of brings me back to where I started off from, about exploration. The number of essays, obviously, as you've heard from all our panelists here today, are huge. Every individual college, especially in the US, they're going to have anywhere between 2 and 11 essays. So it's a lot of work that you have to put in. And how are you going to actually get the essence of these essays unless you've had experiences? By the time you come to your 11th grade, the only thing that you can really have within your realm of control are your essays. You can't really go back in time and change those grades. You can't go back in time and perhaps coach a little bit more and get that perfect SAT score. But you can actually work on your essays. And how can you write those perfect essays is if you already had those experiences that you can possibly talk about in your application. So again, please, I can't stress enough. It's very, very important. Take up leadership positions in school. Try and do things that are beyond your comfort zone, right? And again, Yash, I'm going to come back to you. Yash, you were again a student who obviously had many essays that you had to undertake. Now, you actually applied to study at Northwestern, and you applied early decision. Now, what was that determining moment for you that actually brought you to the realization that Northwestern is the school that I see myself being happy at? That's the right fit for me.
So the first thing I did, the first thing that all of us did when we wanted to look at which college we want to go to is go to the rankings. So I was like, yeah, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, I'm applying everywhere. But then that's where the red pen came in and helped me, because rankings, it's not really all what your life at college is going to be about. It's about how you fit to a specific college. And I realized that because I'm still confused. I don't know if I want to do material science. And so at Northwestern, I found the perfect mix of both material science and a decent engineering curriculum, as well as an economics curriculum as well. So this school, like Northwestern, allows me the flexibility to keep switching between the two, go into a double major, a dual degree. It gives me a lot of freedom to do whatever I want, basically, in the next 4 years. I can even become a journalism major when I leave. So the possibilities are endless at this school. It's that the flexibility, first of all, gave me a huge incentive. It really made me want to apply early decision, because, of course, as we mentioned, that early decision is binding. So when you get that yes, that means you can't apply anywhere else. I wrote I don't know, at least 70 other essays for 11 other schools. I didn't submit any of them. So that's the advantage that early decision works, because it takes away the pressure of having to choose, of having to stress about the rest of the application, and gives you assurance. I've known since December that I'm going to Northwestern, and it's given me 6 more months than most of my friends to get excited about the next 4 years of my life. So early decision is not the easiest thing to settle on. It takes a lot of contemplation. Oh, am I going to apply ED here? Is it Cornell? Is it another school? So it takes a lot of effort to finally settle on the right one. And it goes a lot of ups and downs. At first, I was not even going to do an early decision, but then first I was going to do early decision, then 5 other restricted early action schools. And it was just crazy, because making that choice is the hardest part. And once you get past making the choice, everything else comes easily.
Thank you so much, Yash. And again, this brings me back to the point of how important it is to strategize your applications. The minute you know while you're if you feel that a particular college is the one that fits you culturally and academically, I think it's very wise to sit back, take a step back, and think about whether I want to apply early decision or not. The good thing for you all students here today, when you apply early decision and you get that admit, the next few months are a little bit of a cakewalk, if I may say so. You can sit back, concentrate on your IB exams, you can meet your friends, you can go to those parties, because you've actually worked really hard and identified the right college for yourself. I have to say that, at the Red Pen, we kind of work with a philosophy that it's not what you put into the student, it's what you get out of them. And that's a philosophy that we truly believe in. And I think each one of our panelists here today are a true shining example of that philosophy. And with that, I think I've kind of concluded with my conversation with all 3 of you here. But I have my 4th panelist. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here with us today. She applied to study medicine at Imperial. Of course, as you all know, medicine is a very, very competitive major with limited seats available. It's a very rigorous application process, requires a lot of time and planning. And Ananya took the time to share with us all her insights. She's recorded a little video, which I'm going to request to play right. Hello, everyone. As you all know, today we are hearing from 4 outstanding students who applied to super competitive niche majors that required a lot of planning and needed a lot of pieces of the application puzzle to kind of fit in. Our panelist, Ananya Sachet, who applied to study medicine in the UK, will help us deep dive into understanding what is needed to be successful at one of these top-most med schools. Now, Ananya had a great extracurricular profile. She shadowed doctors like gynecologists, pediatricians to understand the diverse nature of doctor duties. She also observed a multidisciplinary medical team collaborate together. She also kind of shadowed and watched a hysterectomy being performed. In addition to this, she also volunteered at a learning disability institute and also got hands-on experience at a COVID vaccination center, where she advised patients on post-vaccination medication and rest periods. I'm going to move on to talking a little bit about the interviews. These are the medicine interviews. And I know that this actually requires a completely different thought process, mindset, and a lot of preparation. So if you can tell us a little bit about the interview process that you underwent, talk a little bit about the panel interview and the multiple mini interviews as well, please, Ananya.
Making yourself comfortable with being interviewed, with sharing your story with a new person is very, very important. I had my mentor, Aarti, who did a lot of interviews with me, and she also helped me do interviews with people who I was not comfortable with, people who I did not know. And that's something that really helped me and made me be able to be more open and honest with strangers, such as the interviewer who I have just met. And so if you have started the interview process early, that's great. So you have the opportunity to speak with a lot of different people, such as doctors, medical students, medical professionals, etc. And you can do practice interviews with them, you can speak with them, try and understand how they went into medicine, their journey in medicine, their stories, etc. your desire to study medicine is the most important thing that has to come across in any interview style that you may have. Along with that, they would like to test your ethical reasoning, your decision making, your communication skills, how you form relationships with people, how you maintain relationships, and what is important to you in life. These are some of the things that they would ask you about in the interview. It's not very science-based, anatomy-based, or anything like that.
And moving on to my last question to you, Ananya. Your advice for future medicine applicants.
There's a lot of advice that I have to give because of what I've learned during this journey, but there are 4 or 5 very, very important things that I would like to share. The first and most important is that you should know that you want to study medicine. Your desire to study medicine has to be strong and very, very absolute, because you are signing up for a journey of 12, 15 years of education. You have to be sure this is what you want to do. Once you are confident and secure in your decision to study medicine, that confidence will then be shown in your interviews and your essays. Anything that you do, the desire to study medicine can come across very well. The second thing is that you should decide what you want, and from the start, there are many countries we can apply to, and the application for each country is different. So you should focus on whether you want to apply to the UK or Ireland or America for that matter, and focus on that. Don't try to do many things, and you can't have everything. So you'd rather choose one thing and put all your effort into it. The thing that I find very important is that you should involve your parents in the application process. While many of our parents may not be doctors, they may not know anything about medical school or the process, they have been through many hardships in life, and this is a hard time. It's a very difficult time, and so having your parents by your side and helping you, connecting with your counselor is so important and is so helpful. Even forming a good relationship with your counselor. My counselor, she was so motherly to me, and I had such a good relationship with her, which helped me share a lot of my stress and concerns about the application process with her. Next thing is hard work, which I think is very, very important. This is the start of a very long journey of a career that requires a lot of sacrifices and a lot of time and effort. And you have to start that now. You will miss out on some social events, some trips, some parties, and that's a sacrifice that you will have to learn to make from now itself, because that's something you can carry on for many years. And working hard now is something that will impact the rest of your life. Getting into medical school is a very hard thing, but once you do it, you will realize how all the effort is worth it. And I think while, yes, it's a very, very difficult journey, there's a lot to be done, you have to try and have fun and enjoy yourself as much as you can, because at the end of the day, these are your last 2 years here at home with your friends, with your parents. And so try and balance your work as much as possible and make time for the people that you care about and the things that you care about, because these are supposed to be the 2 most fun, best years of your life. So you make the most.
Thank you so much, Ananya, for that. And I have to admit, I really kind of believe in the point that you cited about, your parents being part of your application journey, because we also at the Red Pen kind of believe in working in a very collaborative manner. So we have different consultants working together on one particular student, and the more people, the more thoughts that you have, working together to, make sure that we're getting the application to the best possible level is what we all aspire to do, right? Thank you. I think with that, you probably had enough of me here in person, me here on the screen. I hope that today's session has been insightful for you all. You've got some good tips from all our students here today. They are truly a source of motivation for each and every one of you. They've pushed themselves in every possible capacity. They are determined to personal advancement, and I wish you all the very, very best in your future endeavors and your future journey at college. And very quickly, can I invite Meena, to give our panelists a small token of our appreciation. And before we end, I just wanted to kind of let you all know, if you have any questions, our team is at the back of the room, and we have consultants who specialize in the UK, US, Canada, India. So you have any specific questions related to a particular region, we're happy to answer those. We also have our partners, LCR, who is here to answer any questions related to residency. And if you have plans for lunch and need to leave immediately, we also have a QR code in the folder that's been placed on your seat. You can scan the QR code and set up a virtual sort of connect with us anytime at your own convenience. Thank you so much. And Meena, can we very quickly have you here and the previous panelists as well on the stage?